We are joined today with Allison Johnson, and she is, truth be known, she is one of my coworkers, and frankly, she is the only friend I have on Facebook that I work with. Besides my wife, of course, she's on there. I work, my wife is a coworker as well, but Allison is about the only person I have on Facebook just because I absolutely refuse to have people that I work with as friends on Facebook. But Allison, you've made it past that whole deal. You are a friend of mine on Facebook. How does that make you feel?
Makes me feel great. I remember when that happened too, because I found you. You said I couldn't find you. I found you, requested to be your friend. You denied it, and we made you feel bad for it.
Yes, this is accurate. This is accurate. So, poor Allison, she was stuck working with me for many, many months this summer. She is in the what we call the employee development program at work, and so the first section that she dealt with was QA, or no, what was it?
Agronomy.
Agronomy. Little did you know that you'd be stuck receiving trucks all summer long, not doing actual agronomy. But finally, when we got done with that, you were able to go work with our other coworker and do fun stuff, or basically, better said, be his slave.
Yes, manual labor.
Yeah, manual labor. And I'm actually looking forward to getting back out to doing that next summer because I've gained weight since I stopped doing that. Yeah. And now I just drive around in a truck all day and I look at sellers, and I'm telling you what, that does not, I moved my camera. That does not do wonders for the old waistline, as it were.
Yeah.
Like, not that I've ever had one, but anyway. So this is your story, not mine. So let's talk about. So Allison, again, she's told me pretty much her whole life story. Maybe more than I wanted to know. Yeah, that's right. Seriously, we had hours and hours and hours. She probably spent more time with me for a certain amount of time than she did with her own family, which is I'm sorry about that. I really am. But anyway, so we're going to talk just a little bit about you, and want to talk a little bit about your history and growing up. And so why don't you tell our wonderful audience, where did you grow up at?
I grew up in Fort Myers, Florida.
Okay.
And then just born and raised. Spent a lot of my childhood climbing trees, falling out of trees,
Okay,
going
good.
to the beach.
All right.
We spent a lot of our summers in Michigan. That's where my mom's parents are from. Mm-hmm. So both my parents worked full time. When we weren't in school, we usually were in Michigan. So that was always fun.
Did you like Michigan?
Yeah, it was really pretty. I've thought about moving there, but now I'm in Idaho. So.
Right. We'll get to that point. How did you end up in Idaho? But we'll get there in a second. But you told me a little bit about, I want to know just a few stories, because I know you said you worked at Universal Studios.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
The theme park there in Orlando. Tell me, you had some stories. You got to think of at least one story that you can tell me here, because you're like, oh, I've seen that person in concert. Oh, I saw that person in concert. Oh, I saw that. I'm like, my goodness, this sounds like the most amazing job ever. So tell me something about this job. Tell me a funny story, because you dealt with people, so you have to have at least one funny story.
A funny story. Oh man. So I worked Halloween Horror Nights for entrance operations. So before you come into the park, before you hit the turnstiles and everything, I was mostly in ticket sales and directing people where to go. Mm-hmm. I was a manager overseeing the operation, and I got to spend a lot of time in the security booth with all of the security guys who confiscated all of this contraband that people tried to smuggle in, and people like bringing switchblades and all this stuff into Halloween Horror Nights, where people get drunk and crazy and get scared. So of course we're going to take your knives. But they told me about,
especially in Florida.
Yes.
Just saying.
They told me about this lady who brought her baby to Halloween Horror Nights, which we don't recommend for people under the age of 13. Baby in a stroller. Perfect. And I think it was all part of the ruse to get vodka in baby bottles smuggled in. And of course, they're going to check. So they confiscated the baby bottles full of vodka. I don't know. It was fun.
So what that ends up looking like is that you're giving vodka to the baby.
To the baby.
I mean, right? I mean, that just So they did not get in, or did they just confiscate the vodka and let her in?
They confiscate it. They let you in.
As long as you're a paying customer, it doesn't matter, huh?
Yeah.
I'd be like, hello, child services. But I don't know. That's just kind of weird. But this is Florida, right? I'm just saying, Florida, man, that kind of thing.
Seriously.
So that is weird. So, okay. So at that point in time, how old were you when you were working at Universal Studios there?
When I was working at Universal, I was, 20.
20.
I started working there when I was 20.
All right. Were you going to school at that point? What were you doing?
That was right after I got married.
Oh, okay.
So, because I grew up in Fort Myers, Universal's in Orlando. My husband's from Apopka, which is just north of Orlando. And I was going to school in Tampa before we got married. I was taking out student loans, kept changing my major, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to work full time after getting married. So, yeah.
Well, let's backtrack then. Tell me the story about how you met your wonderful husband.
So, we met at a church camp called EFY, especially for youth. And I had the biggest crush on him. He didn't really know I knew I existed. So I just kind of like admired him from afar. And
admire? How do you, wait, I got to ask a question first. How do you admire somebody from afar? At least for you.
You stalk them on Facebook.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. So would you consider yourself? Do you consider yourself a millennial or what's the Generation Z or whatever they call it these days? What are you?
I consider myself who I am.
Oh, okay. See,
I don't really stick with them.
Look, so when I was a kid or a teen or somebody your age, when I was 20 years old, there wasn't such thing as Facebook, so we weren't really able to stalk people on Facebook. I will not tell you exactly how I stalked people. So moving on. So what happened then? You stalked this person on Facebook. How'd you hook up?
Well, I saw that he had a girlfriend, so I was like, I'm not gonna be that person.
Oops.
I'm not gonna. Huh?
Oops.
Oh yeah.
That's a bummer, huh?
So I just kind of like kept an eye on him, I guess. We were
waiting
friends.
for that.
We were friends.
Single part to pop up on Facebook. Is this what I'm gathering here?
I seriously did. After they broke up, I posted on his wall.
Hey, so glad you broke up.
No. I was like, hey, you're cool. And he was like, no, you. And I didn't know what to do, so I just didn't reply.
Was this on a Facebook post or was this instant message?
Oh no, Facebook post, for the world to see. Like you can go back and you can find it.
Oh, okay.
So then
you didn't respond? Would you ghost him at that point in time or what?
I just didn't know what to. Yeah, I guess I ghosted him.
Okay.
But then a year later, I was in college. He was in college, and I got this phone call that I didn't recognize the number of, like a year later. And I answered it. It was midnight.
Oh, okay.
And I answered it. I was having a bad day, and I was so ready to hang. Like, I was just like, I don't know who this is, but I was like, hello? And I hear two guys, and they're like, hey, Allison, like, what's going on? And I was like, who is this? And they go, the two hottest guys from EFY. And I'm like, oh, man, what if I'm wrong? What if my hot isn't there? Yeah. So I had my thumb, like, on the end call button. I was so ready. And I was like, Lewis and Connor. And I was right. So luckily. And I'll never hear the end of it that I said Lewis first. Yeah. It's brought up constantly 8 years later. Okay. And
are you still in touch with this Lewis?
Friends on like Facebook and Instagram and stuff, but
okay, but that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. So you met Connor at a church camp. What kind of church camp was this? Like what denomination? What is it?
LDS.
Okay, it's LDS. And did you grow up LDS or what?
No, I didn't.
Okay, because Florida is not usually a bastion for LDS people. At least, I'm from Idaho, right? You're living here now as well. Look, Idaho's a bastion for LDS people, at least where we live in Eastern Idaho.
Yeah.
I'm not assuming Florida's got a lot of LDS people in it.
Nope, not at all.
So how did you become LDS then?
Huh?
How did you become LDS? You said you didn't grow up. How did you become LDS?
One of my friends in middle school and high school, he's LDS, and one day, like, we were walking to class with another friend of ours, and he said to the other friend, he was like, hey, it's Wednesday, we have like our Wednesday church activity, like for the youth, like you should come. And I was just like awkwardly standing there not being invited.
Oh.
And he turned to me and he was like, you can come too. And I was like, well, of course I'm coming. Like,
hey, thanks for being the afterthought.
Yeah. Yeah, you made this awkward, so now I'm gonna, actually go. And then I just, like, I went, and it felt like home. Like, it just, walking in those doors, I don't know. I'll never forget the smell. Like, I don't know. It's just weird. But, yeah, it just felt like home. And then...
It's been my experience that most Mormon churches have the same smell. I'm just saying.
They do.
I'm just saying. Did it have that smell? That same smell?
It's like the fabric that they have on the wall.
That could be. That very well could be. You're right. It could be.
Wine fabric. Yeah.
And so you were in high school when this happened?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I was 14 when that happened.
Oh, okay.
And then... Sorry, no, I was 15 when that happened. And then that other friend who isn't a member of the church, he thought it would be funny to send me a Book of Mormon.
Oh.
So, because I don't know if it's still a thing, but you were able to go online and like request a copy and get it for free. So he sent it to my house. And my mom found it in the mail and she was not happy. She was like, what is this? And she hid it in her bedroom where she hides her Christmas presents. And I knew where the Christmas presents were hidden, so all I had to do was go in and search for it. And then, started reading it, couldn't get back past 2nd Nephi. I thought I was just, not understanding it. So I started from the beginning multiple times. So I've read 1st and 2nd Nephi thousands of times.
Okay.
Still couldn't get past it.
Okay.
Turns out it's an easy place to get stuck. So
yeah.
Then I got home really late from one of the Wednesday activities, and I didn't call my mom and tell her that I was going to be home late. She got really concerned. Like, it was 2 hours late, like I'm usually on time coming home from things. She didn't know why I was late. She knew probably where I was, but she was upset, so she was like, you're not allowed to go anymore. Oh. And then I just kind of waited a year and then started going again.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah.
Did they have a seminary there in Florida?
Yes.
Did they? Did they actually have outbuildings that are close to the school, like here?
No, early morning seminary.
Okay.
So you an hour before school started.
Yeah. I interviewed a guy who lives in Delaware, and he was LDS, and he had the same thing where they had to get up really early in the morning and drive, I don't know, it was 45 minutes or something to go to a church to have a seminary, which is something kids around here would never understand, Never. I mean, it's just right across the street if it's not just right across the field, Yeah. It's just, it's something that is normal here. Every school, every junior high and high school has a seminary in this area. Every one of them.
Yeah, and it's one of your class periods.
Yeah, right. Release time, right? You can get dismissed. Which I took release time. I didn't go to the LDS seminary. We actually had a seminary thing that we had across the street from high school, but of course they have to open it up for everybody. They can't just open it up for LDS people. But it's 0 credits. But whatever, you can take it. So you go to this camp, and of course, he's LDS. It's a church camp. So you end up deciding to get married.
Yeah.
Yeah. How long did you guys date before you got married?
9 months.
Okay. And you got married where?
I got married on Fort Myers Beach.
Okay. Wow. That sounds nice.
Yeah.
Kinda nice.
Bowditch Point. It's the very end. Of the island, and not a lot of people go all the way down there because it's the furthest from the pier.
And now Fort Myers is on the Gulf side of Florida? Okay, gotcha. So nice warm waters and all that kind of stuff. Did you get married in the evening when the sun is setting, or what?
Yes. And it had like a thunderstorm came in, because that's how Florida is, like a storm just appears pretty much every afternoon in the summer. This one was really bad, so we were getting ready in a hotel pretty close to the beach, and the lightning struck so close to the building it set off the fire alarm, and we had to evacuate the building. And so I'm like, well, I'm not going to leave my dress. Like, I didn't know it was just the lightning. So I was like, hurry, help me get my dress on. And everybody was like, no, we're leaving. So, yeah, we ended up being late to our wedding because of the rain. It did stop, but it cleared everybody off of the beach, and it left a really pretty sunset. So,
yeah. Well, you probably have some nice wedding pictures at least, huh?
Yeah, I actually don't have any in this room.
Yeah, okay. That's fair. So then, one of the things that we've talked a little bit about in our discussions and our hour trips every day, 2 hours a day, was that you have had infertility issues.
Yes.
When did you have a miscarriage while you're still in Florida, or is that something that's okay? You want to?
Yeah.
How do you want to start going into this story? I know this is something you really want to talk about, but I want to be sensitive. So tell me exactly. You tell me what you want to talk about. How's that?
We can start wherever. I'm really an open book. You know this. I'm an open book when it comes to infertility, because I went through it alone. I'm still going through it, but when it all first started, I was very alone in it.
Sure.
So not a lot of people know how common miscarriages are. 1 in 4 pregnancies will end in a miscarriage. It's 25%. Chances are somebody who's had a miscarriage, or you are somebody who's had a miscarriage. And when it happened, I didn't know it was happening, and I didn't know what to do, because nobody talks about, this side of having sex, everybody's like, if you have sex, you're going to have a baby. It's like Mean Girls. Yeah. If you have sex, you will get pregnant and die.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess we'll start way back there. So I was on birth control 2015, and we weren't planning on having kids at that time, and somehow I got pregnant while on birth control.
Yeah.
So
you wanted that 5% or whatever it is that gets pregnant on birth control. Yeah.
0.1%.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So it is what it is. And we were very, very nervous. We were very scared, and it didn't even cross our minds. So, to take a test or anything. I was really sick one week. I ended up taking a week off of work because I wanted to work on Christmas presents. I was hand making everything. And it happened to be that week that I was just so sick, and I didn't get anything done that I wanted to because I was so sick. And we ended up visiting some close family friends of Connor's and talking to her and everything about how sick I had been and all of that. And she was like, well, are you pregnant? And we were like, no, no way. And she was like, I don't know, you're probably pregnant. And we're just like, you're crazy. I'm on birth control. It's not possible.
Yeah.
And so on the way home, I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I was like, we have to stop and get a test, right? We have to. And we got home in the evening. You're supposed to use first morning urine, to take a test, and it's more accurate that way. But I couldn't wait until then, so took a test, and fastest positive I've ever gotten. It was there. Connor was like, no, that's not true. And at the time, we were planning on moving to Idaho, so this threw a wrench in our plans and everything. We're just like, we're gonna have to stay in Florida. We're not gonna be able to move, and it was weird. It was scary. It was exciting. But I did take a test the next morning, and it said pregnant. It was one of those digital ones, and it just said pregnant. And I was like, this is a thing. And of course, like at that point, you start planning out like your whole future, your child's whole future, and you just get really excited, even though you're terrified and you have no idea what you're doing. So, and I was 22 at the time when that happened. And we didn't really tell anybody. We told like maybe 2 people. And I scheduled my appointment, like my first ultrasound appointment and everything, with a new doctor. I didn't like my previous doctor, so I was like, well, now's a good time to switch, like let's find a different doctor. And before, like the week before that appointment happened, I was at work. I went to the bathroom and I was bleeding, and I was like, what's happening? Like, this isn't supposed to be happening. So I called the new doctor's office that I was going to go to like the following week. And they were like, well, there's nothing we can't give you any recommendations because you haven't had your first appointment with us. You're not an established patient. If you're concerned, like, you can go to the ER. I was like, they're not going to be able to stop this, so I'm not going to go spend money at the ER, That was my thought process. So I worked my entire shift, which was awful, but it kept my mind kind of off of things. I was working at Universal, so there's tons of things to do. And then, it happened. I cried all the time. Like, anytime I went to the bathroom, it was just more tears. Like, Connor would come and like rub my back and just, like be there with me while I'm using the bathroom. He brought chocolates home every single day on his way home from work. I ate a bag of Lindor truffle chocolates every day for about 3 weeks. Wow. And it took a really long time for me to get to a point where like I wasn't crying every day, but it changed a lot for me. So
how are you feeling? Like, how do I ask this question? What was causing the tears? Do you think it was grief? What do you think it was exactly?
I think it was grief. I mean, it's a weird concept to be so sad over like someone that you never met. Like, I never had that first appointment. I never saw like a baby on the ultrasound or anything like that. When I went in for that appointment, I tried to move it up and they didn't have any availability. So when we went in for that appointment, they did a blood draw, try to get your HCG levels. And of course it came back 0 because my body already processed the miscarriage. So everything was gone. All of my levels had dropped. And I heard this weird noise in a different room. And I was like, what is that? Like, it sounded like an alien noise. And I asked the nurse, I was like, what is that? And she was like, that's a baby's heartbeat. And I was like, cool. I just miscarried. Like, I don't know. The bedside manners were not very pleasant. And then I heard them talking out, 2 of the nurses talking outside about my levels and talking about how I should have gone to the ER and gotten a blood draw then so that they could have, seen where I was at. And I was like, I didn't know what to do.
Yeah. Well, how do you know?
Yeah. No one would tell me. And yeah. You're not raised being told about miscarriages. So.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah. So I never saw anything, like I never saw a growing baby. So it was weird being so upset.
Yeah. So at that point, did you tell a lot of people what had happened?
No. Sorry, my dog's trying to climb up.
It's all right.
He's trying to get my chocolates. You doing, buddy? Let me go lock him out real quick.
Yeah, you're fine.
I remember I called my mom and I told my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And
now, did she know you were pregnant?
No.
Okay.
And so her reply, this was really hard for me, and Mom, I'm sorry if you're listening. Her response was, well, were you even trying? And as I have already said, we weren't, mm-hmm. But it, that didn't take away from the excitement that we had. Like Connor and I both, like, we've always wanted to be parents. We just weren't ready to be parents then. So that was really heartbreaking that I didn't really feel support from her in that. I didn't tell my dad. I called my granny, my dad's mom, and I was like, hey, this happened. Should I tell my dad? And she was like, no. Like, if you're okay not telling him, probably for the best, because he'll be really upset, like, with you and for you, and upset because he really loves kids and would love to be a grandpa. Mm-hmm. So we told Connor's parents and my sister-in-law, and she had a miscarriage, but again, like, it wasn't really talked about. And so even though we were all living under the same roof and she had also had a miscarriage before, like, I still didn't feel really supported. I took to Reddit and found a miscarriage subreddit, and that's where I got the majority of my support during that time.
Sure. Your dog sounds so happy to be locked out of the room.
So mad.
So then at that point, did you guys decide that it was time to move up to Idaho?
Yeah.
Why did you why did you decide Idaho, first of all?
Connor had one friend out here, so he knew a little bit about Idaho. We moved to the same town as them. We moved to Rexburg to start, and they were able to help us, like, find a place. But ultimately, we both needed a change. We just really like being outside. Tensions were pretty high with family. Our relationship was getting pretty strained, I think, because of the tensions. Mm-hmm. And Idaho's affordable.
Yeah, so, there is that. There's always that.
Yeah.
Although so that seems to be going away, but yeah.
Yeah. So Connor woke up one morning and he was like, we should move to Idaho. And I was like, that's random. But
so you guys really hadn't even thought about going to school up here. You moved and then went to school? Is that what happened, or what? Because for those of you guys who don't know out there in podcast land, there is a college, a university now, I guess, that is affiliated with the LDS Church in Rexburg, Idaho, where Allison moved. Right? You guys moved to Rexburg, yeah. Yes. And so I guess I thought you guys moved out here to go to school. That wasn't the reason? Oh, wow.
Not really. No, it just kind of like became part of the plan. Mm-hmm. All of the pieces coming together. It took us a year to move out here. Like, we just worked and saved and still spent money and saved.
Yeah.
So took us about a year to plan and move out here.
Okay.
And then,
So you got out here in what year?
2016.
2000. Your dog is making me laugh. I'm sorry. He's just, it's fine. It's great. It makes me laugh. So you got out here 2016, and then you guys decide to go to school then, or what?
Connor was in school then. I was like, I still don't really know what I want to do. So we were both working full time. He was going to school.
It's so funny. That dog loves you.
He's a little too obsessed with me.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay. All right. Continue with your story. If he will let you.
Yes, if he will let me. So He was going to school for nursing. We were both working full time, minimum wage. Don't know how we made it, but we did. Minimum wage in Idaho, for those who don't know, is $7.25.
Yeah. It's the federal minimum wage, which we don't
minimum.
We don't diverge too much from that because we're Idaho. Why would we do that? We're a right to work state. That's what happens.
Yep.
So then, did you have you? Look, I know your story. I'm going to act like I don't know it. Is that fair?
That's fine.
Did you?
That's fine.
Have you gotten pregnant again then, or what happened?
So at the time, after the miscarriage, we were very focused on moving to Idaho and preparing for that. It was really hard for me to be okay with sex in general because, I got pregnant on birth control, and so I was like, who knows what could happen? There's really no good way to prevent anything except for not having sex.
Yeah.
Sorry for your PG rating.
No, I am pretty sure that fits in PG.
Okay.
That's fine.
It took me a while to be okay with that because I was terrified of having another miscarriage. I was like, I can't go through this again. It was too heartbreaking. Got over that, So we still weren't trying, we moved to Idaho. We're making minimum wage. Right. Paying our bills and things like that. And we ended up, getting better jobs and, moving up in jobs, especially my husband, and got to a point where we're like, okay, we're never going to be 100% ready. No one's ever, 100% ready, but let's give this a try. Let's actually try to grow our family. So we tried for a bit. February 3 years ago is when we first started trying, actively trying. And then that September, I got another positive test. It was very faint. It's what a lot of people call a chemical pregnancy. It did not continue, but also my body didn't process it. So I wanted to wait. I was like, my body processed the last one. What's going on? And I feel very disconnected from that miscarriage because it was so faint and I really guarded myself. It still impacts me, but not as much. I guess the biggest thing that hurt was going to the doctor and telling them hey, this is what happened. I'd like to do an ultrasound, and see what happened because my body didn't process anything. I'm concerned that, I don't know, blighted ovum or, whatever.
Sure.
I wasn't very familiar at the time with all of the things that could go wrong, but, you take to Google.
Yeah.
And so I found all of these things that it could have been. And I was just concerned. I was like, do I need a DNC? I need to take some medicine for this? What's going on? And the doctor was awful. He was like, well, you're not pregnant and it's going to be a waste of your time and my time if I do the ultrasound. And I'm like, I'm literally going to pay for it and I'm requesting it. What? Why are you denying me this? And at that point, I was more upset by his treatment of my situation than the miscarriage, the chemical pregnancy itself. So he walked out and I just started crying because I was so frustrated. When I get frustrated, I cry. So I'm sitting there crying, not knowing what to do. And then it was another month and then my body figured it out. So yeah. And then come the following February, so a year after we had started trying, I decided, okay, we need more help. They say that if you've been trying for a year and you're under the age of 35 and you haven't had a successful pregnancy, then you should see a fertility specialist. So that's what we did. I got 18 blood tests done. No, 18 vials of blood, 27 tests for a whole fertility panel.
Wow.
Did karyotype testing, and all they found was that I have hypothyroidism.
Really?
Yeah, so I have unexplained infertility. And we decided, like, after all of these test results came back, and Connor's perfect, so it's not him.
Yeah.
After we got all of these tests back, we're like, okay, let's get, the thyroid levels under control.
Mm-hmm.
They do control a lot of hormones, so let's get that under control and just continue trying on our own and go from there. It's like another 6 months go by, still nothing. So we move on to ovulation induction and timed intercourse. And that was an experience. Having a nurse tell you the exact time that your husband has to finish is a weird experience.
So wait, you did this in a hospital room or what? I'm confused.
No.
Oh, okay, good. That's
no.
Like, all right.
No, so we did a bunch of ultrasounds. I took, it's called letrozole. It's used to grow your follicles. It's also used for like breast cancer treatment. So that's great. Yeah, so we did that. They had to increase my dose because my body wasn't responding to it. Follicles weren't growing as they should have been. Finally got to the point where I took a trigger shot, which goes into your stomach and it forces ovulation to happen. And then she goes, okay, and 12 hours after the shot is when he needs to finish. And then another 12 hours is when he needs to finish again.
That exact, huh?
That exact.
Wow.
And so we were like, okay. We had like an alarm set. Not romantic.
No, not at all. And I'm, look, if you're a guy, that's pretty hard to perform under that pressure. I'm just saying.
Right?
You what? We gotta time this? Come on now.
Yeah, the pressure is real, and it did affect Connor. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's a story for him to tell.
Yeah. Probably should just leave for him. He's probably like, you're telling him what on the podcast?
Right.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
So 2 weeks later, we did a blood draw to find out if that cycle had worked. It did not. It was really hard to hear. Had to stop like my progesterone suppositories and everything that I was taking. And then with the withdrawal from the progesterone, it induced a period to start. And so that was the start of the next cycle. So we did the same thing again. Since we already knew that my body needed a higher dose of the letrozole for the follicles to grow, we just jumped right in, started that day 3 of the cycle through day 7, went in for an ultrasound. Everything was looking great. A few days later, we did another ultrasound, and we just kind of monitored until, the follicles got to the right size to have a mature egg inside. Mm-hmm. And then did another trigger shot. I hate needles. So like the first time I did it on my own, and the second time I did it on my own too. But the first time I was like, I will do this. Like, it's like a test of my strength,
Yeah.
I bruised my stomach so bad.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
But the second one, I woke up, I think it was like 3:00 in the morning to give myself the shot. Mm-hmm. And I was like half asleep, the alcohol pad, stuck the needle in, went back to sleep. It was just easy peasy.
Yeah.
Then fast forward 2 weeks, I got the call after the blood draw, positive. I was like, oh my gosh, it worked. I was so excited. They were like, your numbers are lower than we'd like for them to be, but it is positive. So we need you to come back in 2 days, and we'll do a repeat to make sure that your numbers are doubling. Mm-hmm. Well, of course, 2 days later, I wake up to blood everywhere. That was a nightmare. I thought I was in a nightmare, and I couldn't. It was a Friday. Like, I'll never forget that. It was a Friday. I was like, I have to go to work.
How long ago was this again then? So
this was a year ago.
A year ago. Okay.
A year ago, November. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, so that brings the total up to 3 miscarriages. And at that time, I was just like, I can't, like, we didn't do another cycle after that. I was like, I can't, I need to heal, you know, emotionally for sure. And I didn't realize the amount of trauma that I was carrying with that, especially that one. It was a very traumatic experience to just have so much blood all at once, like, you know, being excited and elated that finally, after, you know, 2 years of trying and treatments, finally worked, you know, like we finally got pregnant again.
And all these treatments came out of your own pocket, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Fertility treatments are not covered by insurance unless you work for a very special company. I know eBay covers fertility treatments, Starbucks covers fertility treatments.
Mm-hmm.
If you're
but it's
in the
a very
military.
rare thing to see on an insurance plan.
Yeah. It has to be like a huge company. Even Walmart, because my husband works at Walmart, Walmart doesn't offer any sort of coverage for fertility treatments. And they're like the number one employer.
Yeah, right. Next to the post
world.
office. Yeah, they are the number one
world.
private employer in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think the second largest is the U.S. Army.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's crazy. So, both of those treatment cycles were $1,000 each. Like after, you know, you factor in the medication costs, the trigger shot, and all of the monitoring. So $1,000 each. So we spent $2,000, nothing to show for it, and still nothing.
So you headed into the holidays then with some heavy grief on your heart.
Yes.
And then, you know, I don't know if you want to talk about this much, but, you know, you have, you know, you've stated that you're religious. And so, you know, when you're involved in church, of course, family is a big thing. And there's a lot of emphasis put on having a family. And how have you dealt with that?
Not well.
Okay. How has your church been as a whole in helping you with that? Has it not been good, or has it been kind of mixed, or what's the story?
It's pretty mixed. It's really hard, like, hearing a lot of talks, especially around like Mother's Day, Father's Day, during General Conference and the like, about the importance of family and the role of a mother and the role of a father. It's really, really hard to hear those, because, I mean, it's not well known. Like 1 in 8 couples go through infertility, but not a lot of people want to talk about it because there's such a negative stigma, and it's very shameful. And it's not like, it shouldn't be shameful, but it becomes a lot of like, well, what did I do? Especially within a religion, it's like, I've been told, you know, maybe you need to pray more. And I'm like, it's a medical condition. Like, it's not that simple.
Yeah, right.
You know, trust me, like if that's how it worked, like, we'd be somewhere by now.
Yeah.
So
trust me, I'm praying a lot. Yeah.
You know, and so the comments like that are like, you know, it's all in God's timing, or it's all a part of God's plan. And having lost 3 babies, like, you know, that's, why would God do that?
Yeah.
Comes up a lot in my mind.
Yeah.
So,
and you've mentioned to me before as well, there's, you know, you feel like this is the one thing that you feel that your body was, you know, females are supposed to be able to have a baby.
Right. Yeah.
And when you can't, I mean, what does that feel like?
Yeah. Your self-worth, like, it definitely tanks. Like, I think about it a lot, and I'm just like, man, you know, you want to see somebody lose their faith so fast. Like, make them go through infertility.
Yeah.
Make them, or,
Yeah.
experience losing 3 babies, even one. One's too many. But I don't know. I definitely struggle with it. I'm very inactive in the church right now, which is hard. Like, it's a huge conflict for me personally, because there are so many things that I love. Like, I still have a testimony, but it's definitely shaken right now. And it got to the point where I'm like, I need to put distance between myself and the church for a little bit, because it's only making things harder on myself. So a lot of people lean into their faith. Sorry, my dog's climbing up.
You lean into your dog.
I lean into my dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people lean into their faith, and I commend them for it. I have a really hard time with it sometimes. So
Sure.
Yeah.
So you went into this year then, and on a positive note, like I said, you were accepted into the program at our work.
Yes.
That hopefully prepares you to advance in the company. We'll see how that goes.
Yes.
And nothing against you. It's anyway. No, you should be the CEO. But
Thank you.
But at the same time, you're dealing with this emotional, struggle. That and so how has this year been for you then? Has it been pretty tough?
This has probably been one of my hardest years, and not really because of COVID. I know a lot of people are struggling with that right now. Luckily, my husband and I have what's deemed essential job.
We haven't stopped working. You and I worked about 50 to 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Nate and I were getting overtime this summer, and so that hasn't been the struggle, but it's been really hard, like, getting into this program. Before I even applied, I knew the 2-year commitment, and I was like, okay, like, I need to be committed to this. We can't be doing treatments, that's just not fair. Like, I knew I would have to postpone further treatments. And, coming off of the miscarriage in November, I wasn't ready anyway. It wasn't until the spring, when I actually started the program, that, serious, I need you to stop, please. Go,
seriously, come on. No.
Seriously, drop it.
I may or may not edit these parts out. We'll see.
That's fine. He gets the loudest toy, and then he just brings it in. So come spring, I was ready to pick up and, start treatments again. But with COVID, they shut down the fertility center, because the fertility center isn't essential. Right. According to whoever said that, whoever made them shut down, which is really hard. And I'm connected with a lot of people through Instagram who also go through infertility, and it's been really hard for a lot of us who, want to pursue treatments, but we can't because COVID. So yeah, that was really hard. I was like, dang it. But I knew, I wouldn't have been doing treatments anyway, but it would have been nice to have the option.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a very dark year, because I didn't, like I said, I didn't understand the amount of trauma that came with each miscarriage. So I just kind of had it all inside, and I didn't know what to do with it. And the end of July was the absolute worst. So
let me just interject here.
Okay.
So I started working with you really like I said, on a daily basis until in May, right? And I did. I saw you kind of descend into a pretty tough a depression. So like you said, by the end of July, when we were still working out in those fields,
Zero motivation.
And we'd come back to the truck and you'd have tears in your eyes. I could tell you'd been crying while you were out there digging potatoes,
So sad because the potatoes were so beautiful.
But it was one of those things. I mean, I knew it, and I, of course I sit there and go, what do I do? What do I say? I don't know how good of a friend I was to you, but I saw it firsthand. So tell me, what did you end up having to do because of that?
Well, just to go off a little bit more about the digging in the fields.
Yeah.
A lot of that was because I was left alone with my thoughts, like digging in the field. You're out there in a potato field, middle of nowhere, digging 10-foot strips of potatoes up. And it took me like an hour for each dig. And so just, there by myself, alone with my thoughts. Yeah. And that was really hard because, with unexplained infertility, you put a lot of blame on yourself. Because it's unexplained. Like every time I go to the doctor, they're like, there's no reason why you shouldn't be pregnant. There's no reason why, you should be, or you shouldn't be able to carry to term and all that. I'm just like, so why isn't it happening? So then you start going, maybe it's that one thing that I said to Nate because I was making fun of him of not having him as a friend on Facebook. You dig up all of those things. Yeah. So end of July, I had the darkest, longest emotional breakdowns, and my poor dear husband had to endure that. It came with a lot of attacks to myself, verbal attacks to him, and it was just bad. Like, I did not get any sleep at all that night. And then the next day I was like, I should probably see somebody. So I reached out to the fertility center and I asked them, do you have any therapists that you recommend who specialize in infertility? Because it's grief, it's trauma, it's loss, but it's a different kind. There's a lot of similarities to every type of grief, but you need somebody who understands, because not a lot of people do. So they pointed me in the right direction, got in contact with a lady, and started going to therapy every Tuesday. That was really good. There were ups and downs for sure, starting out, because I feel like starting therapy with anybody, you have to go through that, who are we?
Right.
In together, what is this going to be?
You got to get a level of trust with them.
Yeah. And there were a couple of times where she said the wrong thing to me, but didn't know it, and I got really upset. But we ended up doing EMDR, which is, I have to look it up, eye movement something. Now my phone doesn't want to work. EMDR. It's basically, just reprocessing traumatic memories. And it's honestly the hardest thing that I've ever done, because I have, including the miscarriages, because I'm now reliving the miscarriages. It brings all of the trauma to the surface, and I'm just kind of stuck with it, suffocated each week, and we're doing it every week. Mm-hmm. So it's just always there. I'm always sad. Afterwards, I'm just sad. But we've been working through, I'm not worthy to be a mother, and I'm what's currently holding me back from really processing more of the trauma is my fear that if I heal, I'll forget my babies. No one remembers them because they weren't here. Right. I remember them because they were here for me. So that's been a huge concern. I'm going to start crying now. That's been a huge concern of mine, is that, if I'm the only one who remembers them, what happens if I heal and I don't remember them? Because then it becomes, I've abandoned them. I believe in heaven. I believe that they're there. But if I let go and I forget, like, they're going to know and feel like they've been abandoned. Mm-hmm. So it's been hard, but it's definitely been rewarding. So like we were talking about before, currently I'm in the best place that I've been in a very long time, like years. Like I feel more like myself.
If it's not the dog, it's the cat.
It's the cat. He knows. He's like my emotional support cat. Yeah. Every therapy session, he comes in and he curls up on my lap and he just purrs the entire hour.
There you go.
He's good.
That's nice.
I recommend cats.
Okay.
Yeah. It's been rewarding because I'm in the best emotional and mental place.
So this EMDR has been really helpful then, even though it brings those feelings up, like you said, so intensely. Does it feel like it's like not only is it bringing them up, but it's letting them out? Is that what's happening?
Yeah. So when you first start EMDR, you have to create a safe space. Mm-hmm. And I think it's that was our first session of EMDR, was just creating that safe space. So whenever I get like really stressed, like outside of therapy, like I just put myself like in my safe space and it just like all washes away from me. It only it works for about 10 minutes and then I have to do it again.
Yeah.
Because like I said, it's all right there. Yeah. But it works. And during the EMDR sessions, I have to think about that traumatic experience or, the statement, I'm not worthy enough to be a mother. Mm-hmm. And I do eye movement. So I just go back and forth with my eyes like this.
Right.
And then I stop and then she tells me to breathe. And then we talk about it, like how I'm feeling, where I'm feeling it. And then we do it again. So I think, being forced to think about all of it, I guess in a way numbs the pain. Mm-hmm. Like I can think about it and not be so upset, or I can think about it and know that that's not a true statement. Right. So, I mean, it's definitely a process and I'm definitely still working through everything, but the impact that it's had on me, like any of those statements, any of those experiences has gone from a 10, on a scale of 1 to 10, mm-hmm. 10 being the most traumatic, most uncomfortable or disturbing, however you want to say it, to a 3, and which is a huge difference.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, and I know that, I've heard people talk about EMDR before, and I know that they've had a lot of success with people with PTSD and stuff like that, getting freedom from those traumatic events that have happened in the past. So there's a lot of scientific evidence to back this stuff up that it really, really helps. So it's interesting, though, that you're doing it through teleconference. I haven't heard people do that really. I know you can find EMDR stuff on YouTube and things like mm-hmm. that, but I wonder how, good effective that stuff is. Yeah, right. Yeah. Effective it is, especially when it's not guided.
Right.
But to do it teleconferencing like that seems interesting.
Yeah. So in our guest bedroom, I actually set up on the wall, I have a piece of blue tape on one side and then another piece of blue tape on the other side. So those are the 2 points I move between with my eyes. Whereas if it were in person, usually your therapist will move their finger mm-hmm. and you follow their finger. Yeah. So it's harder to do on a screen,
Yeah, right. Sure.
Yeah. Her whole thing is, as long as I can see your eyes, we can do this.
Oh, there you go. All right.
So, yeah.
Well, you've had quite the journey, and I'm really excited that you are mentally in a good place right now, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for you. I'm excited to see what's going to happen when you get done with the employee development program at work. How much longer do you have in QA right now?
I think they're shooting for April.
Okay. I really feel like you need to come over to the dark side before you're done with QA and actually go on the variety side for a little bit. But I don't think your current boss is going to let that happen. But anyway, what's that?
He likes me too much.
Well, you are a very likable person, so I can understand why.
You.
But thank you so much for sharing your story, and like you said, being an open book and being willing to do that. Is there any what's the word I'm looking for? Are there wow, I'm having a brain fart. This is what happens when you get old. Are there things that people can go to if they want to, first of all, learn more about infertility, or if they're suffering from infertility and they want to connect? What do you have that you can?
I honestly,
I can't even talk.
I think the online community is absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the greatest friends that I've made in the last few months through Instagram with people who are going through infertility as well. They get it. You can just look at the hashtag infertility. Okay.
And that's a good way to start connecting.
Yeah.
Instagram, you said?
Yeah, Instagram.
Okay. Oh, there goes my camera again.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So, okay. And then you have an Instagram account that you have. And what is that? And we'll make sure we put that in the show notes as well. But what is it?
It's Knit Fertility.
Okay. And do you still have an Etsy site as well?
I do.
What's that?
Etsy.com/shop/knit-fertility.
Okay. And why do you call it that?
I knit my way through infertility is why I call it. I sell knitwear in order to help fund infertility treatments. Okay. It's just so expensive. We're going to be moving into IUI in February. If nothing changes now until then, that does come with a higher cost than timed intercourse and ovulation induction was. So we're currently saving for that. We have a couple of cycles paid for already through my Etsy shop. So it's been really exciting.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Good. And it's also probably some therapeutic stuff too when you're knitting. Is it therapeutic?
It is. Right. Yeah, I'm always knitting. This is what I'm working on.
That is correct. You are always knitting.
I'm always knitting.
That's very nice. That's awesome. Yeah, so I'd be driving during the course of the summer, we worked about 75 miles away from where we live. And so I'd drive and she would sit there and knit. And she would normally control the radio, which means we usually had to listen to, I don't even know if I want to say their names.
21 Pilots.
Yeah, it is. 21 Pilots. Yeah, of course. All right.
We didn't listen to them that often.
Oh, that's not true. You know it.
They're just my top artist of 2020 on Spotify.
On Spotify, yeah. I never got one of those. I guess I don't listen to Spotify enough, but yeah, well, Allison, thank you so much for joining us today, and it's been truly a pleasure. And I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to really find this helpful. So thank you so much for sharing your story.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right.